Kia ora and welcome to Retail Unplugged, a podcast brought to you by Retail NZ. I'm Carolyn Young, CEO of Retail New Zealand, and today I'd like to welcome Matt Tierney, Manager of National Retail Investigation Support Unit for New Zealand Police. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, how are you going?
Good. Hey, look, grab a coffee and take 10 minutes to hear about retail crime and better understand what's happening in our communities. It's really great to be joined by you today, Matt. I wonder if you could start maybe by telling us a little bit about the National Retail Investigation Support Unit and what is it, the work that you do, and how do you interface with local police communities?
So the national unit was established in late 2021 in November, and then I started in January 2022. We had staff in place by June of that same year. We target the most recidivist and violent retail crime offenders, predominantly focusing in the shoplifting space, but we have looked at other charges and stuff for other people as well. We look at it from a national lens. We don't have any borders. We will charge and have charged people for offences across the entire country. Our goal is to bring their entire offending picture before the court so they can be adequately sentenced as a result of that. We work really closely with industry and really closely with retail leaders in New Zealand in a crime prevention lens, but also we work really closely internally with police, and certainly there are individual retail stand-up units in Tauranga and also Hastings and the Napier area, which are doing great things in this space.
So you're working directly with the police on the ground. Your team is kind of educating and connecting in with the police on the ground to make sure that we can get as much traction as we can across the country.
Yep. Our role is to make it as simple as possible for a police officer, any police officer that is at any time of the day, to deal with a really prolific offender and make the most effective use of their time in dealing with it. So we do all the paperwork and everything for them to make that more simple, so that when they pull over somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning during a car stop or whatever, they can effectively charge somebody, arrest and charge them for 30, 40, 50 offences of retail crime.
Amazing. It's fantastic work that you're doing. Tell us, what is it that you're seeing around the country at the moment? What are the trends that you're seeing in terms of retail crime?
Yeah, so just right now, it's a bit of an interesting time. Everything's kind of stabilized, if you want to kind of call it, at the moment. Ram raids, we had the lowest month that we've had in quite some time. We had 13 ram raids the last month, and that's very much down from the peaks that we saw last year. Aggravated robbery has been featuring a little bit, but we seem to have got on top of that. It's largely juvenile based, and we're holding all those offenders to account. So just as of right now, it's quite stable. There are some interesting facts that I pulled out yesterday, particularly from the Auckland City base of policing, and that is, whilst crime has been increasingly reported to police of about 7.5% increase, Aura has recorded a 158% decrease in serious crime from the same 3-month time period from 2023 and 2024. So that's 150 incidences down to 58 incidences. So there's more crime being reported, but less serious crime, which is really heartening to me as well. And also, there is nearly 10% less repeat offenders as well that we're dealing with as a result of that. So it's just showing that collectively, the retailers are helping themselves, and the police are holding people to account, and it is actually making a difference in the scene there.
So that's the key difference, do you think, is just the fact that all of the defensive mechanisms and the protection that the retailers are doing, alongside the great work that's happening in terms of police and actually getting crimes reported, people charged, all of that is actually making a difference?
I think it's finally starting to make a difference. Collectively, we're shining a light on retail crime. It's not something that anybody can do alone. Police talk about this a lot. It's not a problem that we can solve alone, but it is entirely true in the retail space. There is a retailer environment that needs to be influenced. There's a policing environment that needs to be influenced, and we need to hold those offenders to account through that. But there are ways and means that we can deter them away from committing crime in a retail space. And I think, as a sector, the retail sector has matured a lot in the last 2 years, and we're starting to see the benefits of that now.
Fantastic. Look, one of the things that we always reiterate, and I know that you do as well, is that to always report to the police via 10-5, any incident that's occurred, because we want everything reported as the first port of call. But as retailers, how can they share information to support each other within their own communities? What else can they do that would be supportive to each other to make sure that they're protecting their own little area and community that their retail store is in?
Yeah, absolutely. The first and foremost thing is, as you said, is you need to report the crime to the police. If you don't report it, we will never be able to do anything about it. We'll never know about it. We use all reported crime to make deployment decisions for where we send police staff. So we need to understand where the crime is occurring, how much it's occurring, and when it's occurring to make those decisions to where we send our staff. If it's not being reported, then there'll be no police staff in that area because they'll be tasked to other reported crime areas. I really strongly encourage you to use the 10.5 online service if the offender is left. If the offender is still present, please call 111. But if they have left, then please just use the 10.5 online portal. It's been recently refreshed. It's a lot better than it was. It's a lot more user-friendly. You can save it, you can go away from it, you can come back. It's just much more, you can go and serve a customer and then come back and complete what you're doing. So it's a much more user-friendly option from a retail space. But the biggest thing really as well is just knowing your neighbours, speaking to your neighbours, and knowing your offenders and communicating your known offenders to your neighbours and your immediate stores in your vicinity as well. If you all know who to keep an eye out for people, and you can communicate that through whatever medium that is, whether that's WhatsApp or a text tree or an email or whatever that is, then forewarned is forearmed, and you can take some action if that person does then turn up in your store. So however you talk, whether that's physically talking to someone or whether that's communicating over electronic media, those are the most important things. So yeah, it's an old adage, getting to know your neighbours, but it still rings true. Offenders like to operate in the dark. They'll look for areas where nobody's talking, where people are siloed, where they can go around in anonymity and just commit their offending and nobody knows what's happening.
And so what are you seeing? Are there any regional issues that are happening at the moment, and how are those being handled?
Yeah, so retail crime is largely in the metro areas, so through the Tamaki-Makaurau area. So that's broken into 3 policing districts: counties Manukau, Auckland City, and Waitemata district. It is also quite prevalent in the Christchurch area as well. It is more a metro focus. There are some other retail crime in the regions, of course, and that's why the Tauranga unit was stood up, and also the Hastings and Napier unit was stood up to tackle those kinds of offences. Irrespective, what we see is the same across the country, basically. The people are either stealing to order or they're opportunists and they're looking for soft targets. However, whether it's a theft or a more serious crime, they're looking for those easy wins, if you want to call it that.
So what would you recommend that retailers need to do? What are a couple of things that retailers could do to keep themselves safe?
Well, first and foremost is that communication piece, really getting to know your neighbours, knowing your offenders, knowing your common offenders. We know that offenders like to go back to the same places over and over again, or similar or similar brands, similar stores. So getting to know your offenders and managing them is a really important thing. Keeping your store as bright and as light and as clean and as tidy as you possibly can, and also the ability to be able to see inside the store from the roadside, has a real deterrent effect as well. So as retailers, you can make your store less appealing to offenders by shining a light on it, basically, bringing the crime into the dark, removing those blind spot areas that are in the backs of stores behind shelving, reducing shelving heights, all that kind of stuff, to just make it a much more open, light area. And there's a lot of data now that shows that normal people, non-offenders, if you want to call them that, will flock to those areas, all those retailers that have a more open, safe environment, whether that's reality or perception. It doesn't matter. Normal people will go there. They'll drive past other stores that don't look as safe, basically.
Fantastic. Look, that's all we've got time for today, but really thanks for joining us today, Matt. It's been a really great pleasure to speak to you and hear about how the National Retail Investigation Support Unit is supporting retail in the sector in New Zealand. Special thanks to our Retail NZ partners whose support enables us to keep up to date with everything retail. And thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join Matt and I. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to Retail Unplugged so you can keep up to date with all the current industry knowledge. Until next time, ka kite anō, bye for now.